Yeah, so one of the things along the lines of a day in a life, something that's recent, something that's topical. I think pretty much everybody knows about it. But we're recently gone through a process that is going to see our two towns potentially amalgamated. We're just waiting on ministerial approvals or something like that. And to help people understand the job, this is one of the items that you dealt with. But maybe you could sort of step us back in time and talk about the concept, the idea, what happened, how did this actually get organized, how did the information get gathered and disseminated?
Yeah, I mean, amalgamation, you said it's one of the things that we worked on. I would say it's the biggest thing that we worked on, at least in my time on council, and it's honestly a earth-shattering kind of change for our communities, and I think one that's going to be exceptionally positive. Amalgamation's been discussed here for decades, right? Like it's been going on for a very long time. Ultimately, the previous council, the one prior to 2017, commissioned a study on the feasibility of amalgamation that essentially came back saying it's feasible to amalgamate. We already jointly cooperate on a lot of services. We should probably look at advancing that. The problem becomes when councils come in, when new councils join, there's a learning period, right? And people get up the curve and figure out what's going on, and it tends to stall out efforts like that. So there was a period where nothing happened to a large extent on that front, and then ultimately it really started heating up around the time that I joined council again. And so our towns formed this joint Friendship Advisory Committee to help study and understand this. It's a committee that involves councillors from both sides of the river, I'll say. That's not a perfect dividing line, but essentially folks from Black Diamond and from Turner Valley. That that committee was tasked by each council with studying and negotiating towards amalgamating. And so we essentially took the position of gathering the information that we needed. So that committee struck subcommittees to study individual areas. There was a committee to look at finances, a committee to look at emergency services, communications, procedure, and those committees worked with administrations on both sides of the river to get the information.
As well?
And elected
from
people,
both sides,
from both sides,
Okay.
So elected people, all of the subcommittees had elected people from both sides, and all of the subcommittees also had administration participation in them as well. Ultimately, some of the information we need, information from accounting software, that's not, councillors aren't going to go get that information, so administration played a massive role in getting together the information that we needed in order to try to make a decision. Obviously, it's a contentious decision, and it's one that wasn't easy to make, but we took the perspective of working towards having an application submitted this year should we choose to proceed with it, and we met that goal, and I'm happy to see it. Is there more information that we could have gotten? Absolutely, and that's probably one of the biggest struggles that I face as a councillor, a person who focuses on detail a lot, is that you can never have perfect information. So you have to take the perspective of getting as much information as you feasibly can and take that 80-20 approach, right? Of get yourself, identify the major risks, make sure that you're comfortable with mitigations around them, and make decisions on that basis. So yeah, it was a long process. There was a ton of work involved, and I was thrilled to see it go through. That was honestly probably the biggest cause of sleepless nights from being on council, was related to that. And there's going to be more work for a new council to do as well. So
well, I think this is a good example of where a process can work, because prior to the process kicking in, there was a lot of emotion, a lot of it, as you say, in social media. And the impression I got was when it finally got down to, let's dig into the facts and whatnot, and the committee structures and the timelines they laid out, the process actually worked. It did. Right.
It did, and we had help in that, right? So it's not just us doing that. Like we had consultants that helped us to do that, and honestly, the administrations on both sides helped us a ton. It's a difficult position for them to be in, but they got the work and the information necessary, and we were able to advance things. And and not everybody agreed with the decision at the end of the day. Well, everybody on the Turner Valley side did, but the decision was made, and I think it was made respectfully and fairly, and that's ultimately what it has to come down to. And that was a phenomenal experience to work on. My background is one in capital markets. I used to do advising on M&A transactions, and it took me back to those old days, except it's a couple of towns and slightly different way that you evaluate things, but none of those deals are ever clean, and this one isn't either, right? There's going to be difficulties around it, but the biggest thing that I took away from it was you have to balance probabilities, right? And you have to say, do you think there is more risk to the upside or the downside, and which side has risks that are easier to mitigate versus the other side?
Right.
And you proceed with what you think is the best decision that you have.
So that would be some of the attributes of a good candidate would be someone who likes to dig into the risk management side of things and make an assessment, not necessarily based on 100% certainty.
Yeah.
One could argue there's no such thing as 100% certainty anywhere in life.
That's absolutely right.
But we do get people that want to have a lot more certainty than is maybe reasonable to make decisions. That sort of gets back to some of the other things that you were saying about not delving into the last detail before you make decisions as well.
It's really funny because I think of one of the first meetings that I sat in this joint friendship committee, and my approach going into there was, we need to have every I dotted and every T crossed. I need to know exactly how everything is going to look on the other side of this. And ultimately we realized we could come up with that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we could come up with that, and the new council that comes in that's elected by an amalgamated community could tear that all up, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think we needed to evaluate what the future could look like, but we can't perfect everything. And there's a big. Over the years, I've mellowed a little bit, I'd say, in that I used to let the detail get in the way of the bigger picture, and I really try to avoid doing that now. I think you have to be grounded in facts and detail, but at the end of the day, you can't understand everything. You can't know every nitty-gritty detail. You have to know the best that you can and make the decision in front of you.
So the ideal candidate maybe would be someone who is interested in bettering the community, someone who is willing to work with others, not necessarily in a autocratic structure. Someone who enjoys the debate or the negotiation, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, and I would also just add, I don't think you have to have all of those attributes, right? There are people who don't necessarily say as much during a debate, but they will come in with a fantastic administrative inquiry where they've thought about something kind of on their own thoughtfully and just had a question that just kind of knocks the socks off of people. So there's rooms for all different types, but you do have to be comfortable working with a team around that table, and that's what it comes down to.
Right. Okay. I think that's a good place to wrap as far as I can see. I want to just conclude with some administrative details about where people could go, but if you had any advice, you've given a lot throughout the discussion about potential candidates. If you were to kind of sum it up, what would you say to somebody who is maybe contemplating running? What would you say in terms of their fears and their expectations?
Just do it. No, it's a decision you have to make in conjunction with your family and those around you, and decide whether you want to move forward with that, whether your family's comfortable with that. If you've got the support to do it, do it. There's no harm in trying it. Honestly, it's a great feeling to go out and try and do something and be able to enact a little bit of change if you can. And so have at it. That's my view on it. Don't worry too much about it.
Yeah.
I'm not the smartest person on the planet. I survived it somehow for a couple of years. Everybody can get their way through it. So please just try, because good candidates is what it comes down to.
Well, that's excellent. Again, I'd like to thank Jamie Wilkie for taking the time to
Thank you, Wayne.
to give us his experience, and hopefully this will provide some incentive for people. You do have until the 20th. We will post this along with this video, some links so that you can find the nomination papers that you need. And so you can think about it a little bit, but not for too long.
Yeah, it's coming up fast, and look, if you have questions about it, you can always give me a call, shoot me an email. People know how to get a hold of me because I'm always happy to chat about it too. It's been incredibly rewarding. It's not without its challenges, but it's something that you should cross off your list if you're thinking about it.
And that's very generous. So if people are going to call the council members, they should only call people that aren't running. Maybe you get distracted by people who want to think you're taking their position.
Other people might tell you it's the worst job. Yeah, no.
That's right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.